What is going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to another episode of the Tflip Show. As always, thank you guys so much for tuning in. Make sure you guys hit that like, that comment, that subscribe, all that good stuff. And as always, be a friend and tell a friend. Now, to get right into the episode, I'm joined by none other than Mr. Nick DiNapoli. Nick, how you doing down there, man?
Hey, all good right now.
Awesome. Well, hey, thank you so much for joining me, Nick. I'm so excited to have you sit down. Thank you for coming on out here. I want to just dive right into things. So right off the surface, right off the bat, you're a mountain bike rider, right? You race, You compete. Tell me about it. Run with it and tell me about you and how you got into it.
Yeah, no, totally. I mean, started out just like anyone, being younger and whatnot, riding hikes as a kid. Probably started when I was about 5 or so. Then just over the years, just being out with friends and stuff, messing around on trails, building jumps and stuff. So yeah, then didn't start competing till like pretty late. Like I was about 17 or so. And then once I started this, like week after week, you like start racing, you like start doing, like, oh man, like, traveling and stuff, tons of friends and stuff out there. And yeah, just kind of kept on with it. And like, I was about like 2012, 13. So now, yeah, pretty much, weekly activity now.
Gotcha. That's awesome, man. So where did you grow up? Let's start there. Let's focus on the young life and kind of where it started. Let's source it down. So where did you grow up and what would you do at a young age?
Yeah. Grew up in Santa Cruz Mountains. So pretty perfect area, tons of trails. Like
Definitely.
Weather's pretty nice always, not too hot, not too cold, tons of trails and stuff. So yeah, just kind of grew up there my whole life. And definitely like once I started riding, it was just like the perfect area to row with it and whatnot.
So a lot of the time you talk about how you got into riding as a kid and as around friends, just kind of messing around as casual. But what did your parents have any play in that? Was there anyone in your life like that, or was it on your own that you found biking to be your interest?
Yeah, I mean, definitely my parents were always super supportive and stuff. Started with motocross at an early age, so we'd be out on the weekends just riding and racing. The same thing, like just went out and just to like Hollister, like local here, nothing too crazy. Didn't really get into like being that serious until like started racing a little bit when I was about 12, 13. But until then, just like super casual. And even after that, like nothing, like we traveled and stuff, but it wasn't over the top, like super serious. And then like kind of carried over into hikes and stuff more. And then that's when I could kind of like take it on myself a little bit, just because you didn't have to like with dirt bikes, load up, travel, only a couple places to ride. Mountain biking, like I could just cruise out, all the time. So I could start like just practicing riding, and just keep on improving.
So
easier almost.
Which one came first? Sorry if I missed it, but was it the dirt biking and the mountain biking that came first that you said?
It was the dirt biking.
Dirt biking came
Yeah,
first.
for sure. Which I did that like primarily. I didn't touch like a legit mountain bike till I was like probably about 16, 17. So up until then, like I like have like, couple bikes here and there, like messing around on, but like nothing like, not like a proper mountain bike,
Right.
So yeah, that started like end of high school, 17, started racing a bit more, 18, 19. And that's when I got like super hooked. And then like dirt bikes, like rode a little bit, but not, nothing too often, just like rode my mountain bike every day.
Right. Okay. So, and then I was doing a little scouring of your Instagram. It's really cool seeing all the races and accomplishments and things that you've done. Super cool. First off, the social media presence is top tier.
Working on it.
Yeah, it's great. I think it's really good for the sake of, spreading your brand and you and your racing and getting people out there. I mean, that's how I came across your account, right? So what I want to ask, though, is seeing some of the races that you've done, talk about some of your accomplishments that you could come right off the top of your head. Like one thing is like, okay, yeah, this was awesome. This was big for me.
Yeah, no, totally. I mean, like I said, it's definitely, I've competed in so much over the years, and sometimes it's tough. Like, I feel like at times, like maybe I haven't accomplished anything like that crazy or, but then like thinking about it, like starting out on my own, like riding and stuff, like not knowing anything about it. And then over the years, like competing and then traveling, probably number one would say going over to Europe. So I went over to race in Europe in 2019. Okay. And it was super, like, that experience was super awesome. It was a little tough leading up to it because I crashed and broke my arm about 6 weeks before, pretty much exact, I think. So, yeah, that was like end of April. So I was going into it like super stoked. Everything was planned, and I like go crash, break my arm. I'm like, oh, like the one time, you know?
Right, exactly.
But I was able to like make it work. Started like I was off the bike for a couple of weeks, but then I started like, you know, riding again briefly. And then, yeah, but over in Europe, like such a cool experience. The riding over there, just traveling in general, you know?
Yeah.
And also like mountain biking over there. It's quite a bit different, even just like the trails and whatnot. Like out here, California especially, a lot of like built up man-made stuff, like, you know, sick jumps, berms and stuff, which is cool. But out there, a lot of just super natural riding. So you're just way up on the mountains, like up in the Alps, and you're just like descending through these sick, just like everything's like huge trees, green rivers, like just super cool experience. And also, yeah, just in the lap where you see like you're racing against these guys that are top notch, and you're like, whoa, like this is pretty sick. Yeah. Like granted, I was like way back. I did not do very good at all, but just like being out there was, you know, I'll always remember that.
Yeah, I would say so. I think that's a hell of an accomplishment and not something to take lightly. Yeah. You know, it's a big deal.
For sure. And then even after, you just kind of learn it. Like, that's the cool thing about like racing. I feel like you're always like learning. There's always people faster than you. You can train, and that's what's tough too. Like, I've obviously been like pretty stoked on competing and stuff over the years, but you got to balance out other things, you know, life, work, school, whatever your interests are. You know, there's those few people that are top riders, but for everyone else like me, you know, you're racing on the weekend for fun. You're trying to push it and train as much as you can, but like that's not your primary goal because like you're not getting paid for it, you know. Mm-hmm. So you got to kind of like focus on other things and then like balance that, you know, how much effort can you put in, right, and whatnot. So
how many races would you say you do on a regular basis? Is it a monthly thing? Is it a weekly thing? How often are you racing?
Yeah, for sure. It comes and goes. Like I was racing a couple of years ago. I was racing like during the months like May through September is when like most events happen. I was racing like every other week probably, like pretty often. Wow. I was racing, you know, mix of like enduro, cross country stuff. So I was doing like every discipline almost. So that kept me pretty busy. Past 2 years, I've definitely slowed down a bit. Just done like a couple events here and there, you know, try to race like once a month, twice a month. But just kind of depends on what's out there.
So, and with the racings, because I'm entirely naive, I have no idea how it all works. So, is it a sponsorship thing? Do you go out and find sponsors to kind of support you for the race, or is it your own name, your own brand? How does that work?
Yeah, no, totally. Like, there's, you know, obviously lots of your like professionals, they're, you know, sponsored athletes. That's their job to go out and race. For most everyone else, you know, I mean, I'm not like a, you know, mainstream like top pro. Like I'll like race pro and like do pretty good sometimes, but like for most everyone else, you know, you're just going out there, you know, if you just go up and race, it doesn't take any like sponsors per se or like anyone to get you in there. Yeah. You know, which is cool about riding. Like there's, you know, classes for young kids, beginners up to, you know, experts and pros. Okay. But I was lucky, like over the years, like definitely has some help. You know, once I started getting more serious, just from local shops in the area, and then like specialized hikes started.
Okay, so you talked a little bit about the sponsors, right? And how it works. You don't need it necessarily, but for the pros, you know, that's their job, right? And you talked about a little bit about Specialized. How does Specialized for you, the bike company, for people that don't know, how are they come into play with you and what they've done for you and where you're at now with them?
Yeah, no, totally. It's definitely a pretty awesome experience. Like, started getting help from a couple of the guys who worked over there. over the years is one of those things, like local company over in Morgan Hill. So a lot of the eyes are in this Santa Cruz area. So, out on the weekends, riding and stuff, getting to know people. And then that kind of turned into like, hikes and, gear and apparel and stuff. Just like being able to help test stuff, put miles on things. Yeah, no, overall, just they always helped out with hikes and stuff. So I was able to be out at races on equipment that was, best of the best, which was pretty sick. And then that worked itself into a job eventually, which is one of the cool things. Like once you kind of realize like you love to race and stuff, but you're not going to make it your full-time career, but how you can kind of still be out there as much as possible and be learning about the bikes, being engaged at events, and then have that be like your proper like 9-to-5 job too.
Right.
But you're still around bikes, working on bikes all the time. So
yeah, so okay, that's super interesting to see how that all ties into what you're doing, where you're at. And so now here's the next thing I'm kind of curious about is that it's no question that this sport is super hard on your body, I can imagine, right?
Yeah.
And you got to be fit and trained up to take it on
For
and
sure.
compete to be the top class. What do you do to train? If you know you got a big race coming, what do you do to train?
yeah, no, that's the thing. Like once you start getting into it and you're like, okay, you can ride your bike every day. And that's for some people, like there's definitely a couple buddies of mine, they're just like naturally talented, they cannot touch a bike for months, hop on, be super fast and strong. But for most people that like isn't the case.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say like, I don't know, I've definitely ridden for a long time, lots of years, but you're still like, I feel like if I don't ride or work out or something for like a week at a time,
Yeah.
you're like, whoa, I'm terrible now.
Yeah,
I have,
right.
like no fitness,
Gotta
don't know how to ride a bike.
Right.
And that's the thing. Like it's you're usually like on the bike 4 or 5 days a week, in the gym probably like 2-3 times a week. Granted, certain times of the year, it goes up and down. Like during like winter time, kind of like hot at any events going on. So a lot of people are like putting in lots of miles in the gym a lot. Once it starts, come spring, summertime, races kick in, you're going to like taper down a little bit sometimes. Like, and for everyone, like depending on like what type of riding and racing you do, it's going to, change. Like people on road bikes cross country, they're going to be riding 4 or 5 hours a day, every day, pretty much putting in lots of hours. But when you start racing more like the gravity stuff, where you're just trying to sprint down technical trails like as quick as possible, you're gonna be like more time in the gym a little bit, not busting out like 5-hour rides as much, but you're gonna be focusing on like laps and technique and just putting the time in,
It's
on
interesting.
your bike.
It's interesting hearing the variance in whether you're going for speed, strength, endurance. I feel like there's departments, for lack of a better word.
Yeah.
To what you're preparing for. Is that right? Is that
Yeah,
what I'm getting?
yeah, no, totally. Like depending on what you're into and what racing you're kind of focusing on, there's a different way to go about it. For most people, that's where I've kind of struggled in ways. Like I like to race as much as I can on like every different type of bike or discipline. So sometimes I joke about it. Like I'm the best. Like I can do any type of riding pretty good at like an 80% level, but I can't do one thing like perfect,
Your utility knife.
Where that's the thing. It's like I kind of wish I could like focus on one thing, but that's where like depending on what you're into, it keeps it fun being able to jump around from different types of bikes. And if you feel like doing, going out on your, BMX bike or your road bike or your trail bike or something, just whatever you feel like, but it teaches you things,
Definitely.
Also.
I think it keeps you universal, ready to take on anything, no matter what the task or challenge may be. So I'm curious about, I feel like every sport, every basically physical activity of any sort, like mountain biking, what we're talking about here, is there much of a mental side to it? There's obviously the physical factor, no doubt, that we just spoke about. What about the mental side? What is that like, whether it's preparing, getting your mind right? Tell me about that.
Yeah, no, for sure. Like sorry.
It's all right. You're good.
You can be as fit as possible. And you see that, like, there's a lot of top racers. They can be, super fit, super healthy. But if you're mentally not, like, just, like, focused maybe, and like also you need to know what you're capable of. And I feel like I've struggled with that at times too, you know, like I feel like I can ride pretty solid and go, you know, pretty fast whenever I want to at times, but I also am not as confident all the time as well, you know. And even like when you're out just on a random Saturday, like you're riding, you're going quick, you feel like the best you can be. Then you go out and race and you're like, oh, second guessing things, like overthinking, like maybe you're like, you know, you're like, I could go harder, but I don't want to like go too hard and blow up and like start falling back, and like learning just what you're capable of. And, you know, also like have, you know, understanding like, okay, have I done as much as I can to be prepared, or have I not, you know? And that's something where if you're, you know, you've been putting in the work and you're, you know, comfortable, you're going to be doing good, but you have to like believe that, you know. Whereas you can be like, you know, super on it, but if you're not like confident in yourself, then that's where you start to like slack, which is something like I feel like it's tough to grasp sometimes. But, you know, when you're trying to, you know, line up and race a bunch of other guys that are, you know, the best of the best, or, you know, you're like on Instagram seeing what people are doing, they're riding, oh, he's riding this today, or he's on, you know, they're posting what their like workouts are, and like, you know, you're like, oh, am I like not doing enough, or like I wasn't on my bike today, but I rode hard yesterday, but does that mean I'm slacking now? Because like he's posting this, or, you know, just stuff like that.
It's always a competition, whether it's on or off the track, it sounds like, right?
Totally.
What separates a good rider? What makes a good rider that separates themselves from the rest of the pack?
I don't know. That's a tough one. Like everybody's, you know, everybody's different, you know, for sure. I think I mean, if I could create like the perfect rider, it's like you got to be able to enjoy it, you know, have fun with it. That's something like, depending on how serious you take it, it can take the joy out of it pretty quickly. So if you can balance it, and then also just always being out with other people, riding and training for me always helps a lot. You can be out on your own, and sometimes that's not, it's like important, you know, you have like a certain workout you're trying to do, you can't do it with other people, or just like stopping and going, or going slow or too fast. But if you can always be around people that are better than you, it's going to teach you a lot. And then I guess just being able to like, I think when you're at a race, just really like going all in and knowing like, okay, this is like how it's going to go. This is what I'm going to do. Like I'm capable of this, and just really like set your mind to it, and don't really let other people like get in your head, or you're like, oh, he looks really good. Like, am I like not doing good now? But cause I've had times like that where like, you know, you're in an honest age or something, you're dropping in, you get to the bottom, you're like, okay, that was pretty sick, but like you start looking at everyone else coming down, you're like, oh, they're going pretty quick, and like maybe I messed this up. But then, you know, you find out like, oh, they crashed, or they messed up, or you actually went pretty fast, and you know, you're like, oh, I'm doing pretty good. So
okay, so do you I'm a little curious as to you're starting to talk about looking at other guys. Do you get, it's all at one time, right? When you race, you're lined up, you know, shoulder to shoulder with one another and drop in together, or is it one at a time and it's based off a timestamp?
Yeah. So what I was mentioning about different like disciplines and stuff. So like your cross country racing is your like traditional racing format, I would say, just like motocross or whatever. You're lined up, everyone. You know, it's a race. It's usually like an hour and a half, and that's your normal, like, okay, first place is going to be the first one to cross the line. Yeah. Then you get into the more gravity stuff where you're racing in Euro or downhill. Okay. And that's one at a time. Oh. So you start, next guy's going to be 30 seconds back. You're just against the clock. So you're racing other people, but not the same time per se. Not the same time. You're racing like it's, you know, you line up, you go, it's all you, and they add those times up for the overall usually. Okay. So you can be like, I got first place on stage 1, 5th place on stage 2, you know, 3, 4, whatever. Right. And then, yeah. So okay, that's the difference. Is like, yeah, if you're racing in a road, a cross country, or downhill,
Okay. See, I
Really
guess that makes a
different.
lot more sense. It'd be rather chaotic if everyone was racing downhill together at the same time.
No, for sure.
I just picked, that's the first thing I picture. You're shoulder to shoulder, ready, set, go. Right.
Yeah.
But that makes a lot more sense. So speaking of chaos, tell me a little bit about like some of the, I assume, I hope not, and no more to come, but some of the injuries you've had. You already talked about a broken arm. I mean,
Yeah.
Tell me about it.
Nothing too crazy. I mean, I always like, whenever someone asks me that question, I'm like, oh, nothing that serious. But then, like, broke my collar, but then, like, you start pointing, you're like, oh, 2 collarbones, like, a leg and an arm. And, like, guess it sounds worse.
you downplay it.
You know? But a lot of those, like, none of those came from, like, racing mountain bikes per se. Either, like, riding for fun or just other messing around.
Oh, okay.
I have crashed a handful of times and like hit my head pretty hard, so that's probably a little bit scarier.
Yeah.
You know, you're like slamming into a tree like head on, and then you're kind of like on the ground for a few minutes, not really sure what's going on.
You say it so casually, just slamming into a tree, you know.
I remember like I was looking through my phone and I like took like last, I think it was like last June or something, like had a pretty hard hit, and I think I was out on my own, which sometimes is like, you try like definitely like riding by yourself. Sometimes it's not the smartest probably, because a lot of like the trails you're out there, you know, you have your phone, but there isn't any service.
You're isolated.
You know, but that's where you like try to tone it down a little bit maybe. But anyways, like crashed pretty hard. I was like knocked out for a little bit, and I was like, I guess I was taking like photos on my phone, and like there was one like I went back and saw like my face. I was like, my helmet was all like sideways, like dust covering, and I was like, oh, that looks like, that doesn't look too great.
So wait, you don't recall doing that? Is what you're saying?
No. I mean,
my
I
God.
like recall the crash and stuff,
Right.
but like not like the split second. I'm like, oh, let me like take my phone out and take some photos.
Post crash, that's the first thing you think of.
Yeah, I'm
in
like,
a
oh
hazy
no,
state.
what happened?
That's funny. So okay, what does the future hold for you as far as racing? What's to come? Is this because it sounds like you're more or less, correct me if I'm wrong, doing this for fun, kind of just wherever it takes you. Am I right about that?
Yeah, no, totally.
So okay, so do you continue to carry that on, or do you have intentions to try and go pro? What holds for you?
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, it's one of those things for now. Like, I do it just because it's like all of that, and like, I don't know, it's just something like kind of look forward to, like focus on. Like, I like my day-to-day life. I feel like I just work a lot better when I'm like focused and have things I'm trying to like work after. Mm-hmm. And that's what, like with racing, that's what keeps me kind of like in line, I guess, you know. And it's something, I mean, I've done quite a few events this year. I mean, like about 5 or 6, but was in like Arizona for one a couple months ago, and then like some other local ones. But it's one of those things, like it definitely, and like racing professionally, you know, it kind of like pushes me to keep like trying, you know, as much as I can.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, like there's only, you know, how many hours in the day, and you're juggling like work and, you know, other like adult responsibilities, and
Sure.
you can't just be like on your bike 24/7 or in the gym all day.
You could
know?
be if
you could be,
want,
yeah,
right.
but that just isn't the case.
Right.
So it's like it's you know, it's keeps it fun. Like, how much effort can you put in, get those results, and still be like competitive enough to like keep pushing it, which is something like sometimes like, you know, I wish like I'm like, oh, I could like do a little bit better or do a little bit worse and then like take a step back, but I'm like hanging in there, you know, like making the podiums at like quite a few races on and off, but then also like say like 8th, 9th, 10th, like top 10s that like keep you hooked enough to like, oh, like I need to keep trying because I'm gonna like stay in the mix, but if I don't, then I'm gonna like start falling back.
Right.
And I haven't wanted that to happen yet, you know, maybe eventually, but right now like still pretty hooked on it. So
I want to kind of shift gears here away from biking, mountain biking, and all that stuff that we've talked about thus far. And I want to kind of shift gears to get a little bit more personal. And it's obvious here, just address that at the forefront, is that you have a stutter, right? And something that you told me that you've grown up with. Tell me about how you've handled that and what that's like for you, because it's obvious, you know, to be blunt,
Yeah.
you're far outside your comfort zone here.
Yeah, for
you
sure.
know? And the fact that you're coming on a podcast knowing that you struggle with speaking. So tell me about how you handle that and what that does for you.
yeah, I know for sure. Like, this is something like my whole life I would have avoided, like, you know, any moment like this, even like in school and stuff. Like, I think one of the last classes I had to take, like when I was in school, was like public speaking. I put it off to like the last semester. I think like that was the only class I took that semester. So like it was like one class. But I was like, oh, I have to take this, I guess. But yeah, that's the thing. Like it comes and goes. You know, when I was younger, it was pretty serious. Like I basically could not talk for the most part, like without like just having a ton of, you know, tons of problems, like just pronouncing stuff, getting things out. Over the years, did a lot of like therapy and stuff, which did help in ways, but I don't know, everyone's different. Like I haven't really met anyone else who, you know, struggles with speech or anything. You hear about it, but I haven't really like come across anyone.
Yeah.
But I think it's also something that you kind of grow into, or maybe kind of just learn how to work with it. The big thing for me was just like, I feel like embracing it more. And like when I was younger, I would avoid conversations. You know, I remember like at races, you know, I'd like get first place or something and be dreading going up on the podium because I'm like, oh, if he asks me a question, it's like it's over.
Yeah, just don't
so
talk.
I just try to like, I don't know, I would like hate all those, you know, events and stuff.
Yeah.
And then the same thing with like, you know, friends, you're trying to meet new people, and so like, oh hey, like what's your name? You know, it's like you go to Starbucks and order a coffee and they like ask you what your name is, and you like struggle for a second. They're like, oh, you forget your name or something. I'm like, no, idiot, like
yeah, come on.
I just like can't say it right now.
Yeah.
Right. But yeah, so it's something over the years I've been trying to like address more and just not try to like pretend like, you know, it isn't there in the moment. You know, it's not as bad as it used to be, like I said, but still something I struggle with, obviously. You know, when, you know, whoever's tuning into this podcast, you know, pretty clear, you know, what's going on. So
yeah, well, I think the thing to take out of it is that, first off, right off the bat, it's incredibly respectable and amazing to see that, you know, you embrace it, take a head on. There's so many people that, you know, like you said, they hide it, you know, and either they don't talk or they say just barely enough where it's hidden, you know, because the amount of anxiety that they have and the fact that you're taking a head on, getting so outside your comfort zone is inspiring to not only myself, but others, you know, people that do stutter. And I think about like young kids, right, who they struggle speaking and stuttering and stuff. So what do you say to them that are so anxious that they don't want to say anything? What do you say to, like, let's say you're talking to young Nick right now. What would you say to young Nick regarding the anxiety with speaking?
I'd say like, I mean, it's pretty like, I don't know. It's the same thing like people used to tell me, I guess, but you never really like listen or believe it. It's like, oh, like it's not that bad. No one's actually like paying attention, or like the same thing. I mean, you're like in class, like presenting something, like most people aren't really paying attention to what you're saying anyways, you know, but at the same time, it's like, I feel like overthinking it, you know, a lot. And that's something you just need to like, I feel like just be comfortable with who you are, what you're doing, you know, and if like those people around you, they're obviously like, or like your friends or family, different relationships you have, like everyone's around you for a reason, you know, that's not going to turn people away, you know. And if it does turn someone away, like they're not going to be in your life anyways, kind of.
Yeah.
But I think the biggest thing for me was just to like kind of accept it and not, you know, I would definitely kind of hide from events or people and stuff when I was younger. And that was, that's why I got into like mountain biking so much, because like it's such an individual sport.
Right.
And it was like, okay, I could like be out by myself, go, you know, ride as much as I want, go to races, try to get on the podium, win, and like that kind of proves something, you know. So I could like kind of keep to myself, be quiet, and then like go out and race and compete, and like, you know, then people are like, oh, like good job, you know, congrats and stuff. But then like I didn't really need anyone else. Yeah. So
what would you say was the turning point for you through the transition? Because obviously, to the point we all know it, kids are ruthless. So being at a young age, being kids, because, you know, you're talking about in the classroom setting, kids will sit there and snicker at you when you're in elementary school, right? Like, you know, that's just how kids work, right? But what was the turning point for you where you realized you're like, you know what, I am the way I am. There's only one way that's going to get better is by facing it. What was that point? Was it a moment? Was it just an age thing?
Yeah, not really an exact moment that I could think of. I think just, you know, just throughout life and in general, you're growing up, the older you are, like different things start happening with like different jobs or stuff. And almost like there are a lot of times where I was like forced into it per se. So I think that definitely helped. Like I said, like if there was things that I could avoid, you know, and like have that power to, you know, I would take that. And when you're kind of forced into it or forced to present something or forced to go like talk to a group of people, or like I'd be at, obviously at events all the time, and like you're engaging with other people, guys coming up asking questions, or, just being out there with the public. So that was the thing, like I said, not really a key moment, but just over the past couple of years, like nothing, like I'd say like got easier the past few years for sure, but it was not, it took a long time.
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, people deal with it lifelong, I would say, from what I've heard. And in most cases, that's what I'm trying to say. In most cases, people deal with it lifelong. But here you are being able to take a head on, and you had that turnaround moment. That's what matters.
Yeah, and like, that's the thing. Like, I doubt there's going to be one day I just wake up and you're like, oh, like everything's perfect,
Right.
There's moments it's easier, and like depending on like your stress and like if you're comfortable with someone. It's like when I meet someone for the first time, it's usually like a little bit tough because you're like, oh, like I don't want to like mess up or sound like an idiot, but like once you're comfortable around people, then it's like pretty chill.
Yeah.
But you still have those random moments. Like I said, like you're at a restaurant ordering food or like a coffee or like something, or, like people are always going to like give you crap a little bit.
Sure.
But it's one of those things, like it just, I don't know. I don't really think about it anymore.
I have to say it's incredibly admirable to say it again. And it's awesome that because like I said, meeting someone the first time here, we've only talked on Instagram a little bit here and there, right? And set up.
Totally.
And so here you are sitting in front of me, and I could tell you from my perspective, it's not bad. I mean, it's not even noticeable. I mean, I think you're understandably so hard on yourself than you should be, but I mean, it's awesome that you still are taking it head on, embracing it, and saying, all right, there's only one way to get better at it.
Totally.
So it's awesome, Nick. So I do want to get right back into the biking now. I was thinking about another factor here. I'm curious, what does race day look like? Day of race, what goes into, what's the prep, what's getting to the course, everything like that. What's it like?
Yeah. So, I mean, that's pretty perfect. Like I was racing last weekend. So typical weekend, like most of the time you'll practice on Friday or a race. And that's what I was saying. There's like multiple different trails, and you're timed from the top to bottom of each one. And then your overall time is calculated based off that. So you'll usually be out there Friday. You're practicing all the trails and stuff. Because that's the thing, like you're on race day, you're trying to go as fast as possible pretty much on the trail. And you got like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different ones. So practice, like most of the time people are kind of chilling, like checking out what kind of features or obstacles, what the terrain's like, or, if there's a blind corner or something, which way you're going, all that. So that's usually happens Friday. Race days are usually Saturday or it's a 2-day race. So you race both on Saturday and Sunday. But as far as like prep and stuff, that's where like going and then into that, you'll be riding. Like I'll typically try to take like 1 or 2 days off the bike just to kind of like let myself kind of recover completely. Your legs are always tired from riding all the time. So take a little bit of time off, or just like, go out on and just like cruise a bit, super slow, just like keep everything moving.
Yeah.
But yeah, up until that, like get to the race Friday, same thing, like just like eating, drinking lots of water, staying hydrated, trying to like take your time out there and not push it too much. That's what I used to make that mistake quite a bit. I'd like practice as if it was like race day almost, to come like, oh, I need to learn like how fast can I hit this section or something. But then you're just blown up, and then race day comes and you're just tired.
The shot.
So now I try to just go like super slow, and even on race day too, like, pretty much go all out on on the stages themselves. But when you're transferring, she'll like drop in, do a stage, then you'll transfer, they call it, to the next one, and that's where like you're just cruising super slow, try not to waste too much energy. That way you can get to the top of the next one, be recovered, and all that, be ready to go.
Do you have any race day rituals or routines, like, or even superstitions? Some people are like, oh, I got to wear this sock on, game day or whatever it is. Do you have anything like that?
Nothing really. Like, I don't know. I'm a pretty like laid back person, I'd say. And like, I kind of know what, as far as like, I don't have any like certain types of like food, or I have to eat this type, this breakfast on race day, and like wear this thing and do this. Yeah. I just try to do everything like with what I'm comfortable with. I've raced enough to know like what kind of works, what doesn't, what food I'm going to eat the night before that, doesn't come up the next day. Like, feeling all, you're like, because that's the thing, you're exerting yourself pretty much the max,
Right.
And rate, like I've gotten to like heart rate up to like 200, 201,
Oh my
like,
gosh.
pretty often. And like, if you're going to like throw up or something, that's going to happen if you're not taking care of yourself.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's the thing. Like I've kind of have my routine, okay, I'm going to eat this for breakfast because it always works well, sits well in my stomach, stay hydrated. And that's about it. Nothing too crazy, the night before, like get lots of sleep, not be out late. So
Smart. So, okay. So we've realized, if our listeners haven't already, and myself included, mountain bike racing is very unique from other sports, right? So I think about it's like other sports such as, football, baseball, basketball, they're working for a championship, right? All season long, game after game after game, they're working for a championship. What do you think makes mountain biking unique? Because there's no like, a season long and then a championship, right? Whereas, those other sports have. What do you think makes mountain bike racing unique compared to other traditional sports?
yeah, well, that's an interesting one because like there definitely is that all season long. Like
is
there
that right?
is like you can go race, like there's a lot of like one-off events that just happen say like one time, but there is different series. So you can follow, there's 5-6 race series, professional ones. There's, there can be 10, 15 rounds. I don't know, but there definitely is that championship like mindset to it.
Really?
So you can, people be doing each different event. You'll get, say first place, you get, points. So first will get like, I don't know, 50 points or something. Second will get 45 points. And then, on and on. Yeah. So there is that where you're competing in a series from start to finish, which can take place, May through September, maybe before that, maybe longer. Mm-hmm. But I think what's different from your traditional like basketball, football, you don't have that other like team element. Right. There's definitely like teams with like multiple riders on a team,
multiple individuals
at the pro level,
right?
There'll be a factory race team and there's 3 riders on it. All those riders are working for the team basically and representing the team. Mm-hmm. But their race results they're not factored in by anyone else, Mm-hmm. So there could, one of the guys could get first, one could get fifth, one could get eighth. That doesn't change like their overall placing, right? But that's their individual, but they're all like on a team per se. But that's the difference between like your normal sports.
Yeah. So
like which I don't know much about. I've never really been into like your traditional like, football, soccer, all that. It's fun to watch a little bit, but I know nothing about it. I don't follow it, so I can't really relate too well.
Yeah.
But
what's funny is that we're almost in a way, in that sense, we're opposites. Because I'm a big sports guy.
Yeah.
I tell you about everything going on in sports. But then I want to have you here because I'm entirely naive and clueless to the mountain biking and even motocross and all that stuff. I'm clueless to it, So that's why I see here. I said, there's no seasons, right? But you said, oh no, hang on, actually there is, right?
For sure.
So it's super interesting to hear that there is almost a championship mindset. I thought it was a one-off thing, like you said. So
yeah, no, and like I said, there's definitely a handful of those events that they happen once a year. They're different types, but there for quite a bit there is that season-long approach. There's a couple events. I did the first event of this series in May, then the second one was this last weekend, and I was like trying not to get too hooked, but I ended up doing pretty well. I got like a 7th at the first one, then I got a 5th last week.
That's awesome.
So I was like sitting like 5th in points kind of right now per se. So I'm like, I'm gonna try to go to the next one and like keep doing it and see what happens maybe.
And so these points carry over from race to race, no matter where you're at.
Right. So that's what I was saying. Like you get like say 50 points for first place or something, right, and then 45 and work your way down. So, and then, if say the guy in front of you does 2 races, doesn't do the next one, you do it, you're going to move up and stuff like that.
And so do these points lead to like a prize pool? Is there a winning at the end of the season? I'll say, I don't know if that's the right word, but is there like a winning, or is it a trophy based thing, or just a title? What does that lead to with those points?
Yeah, each level is different. I mean, when you're doing more like local stuff, you'll get like the trophy or a medal or something, but nothing too crazy. You move up more to like regional stuff or across the country. That's where like your hash and all races. That's where like for pros, they're going to be getting paid on the podium, end of year, prizes and stuff. And then also like when you're at the elite level where it's international, then that's where like those guys are super serious. Like they're all like each race is like, they're putting all their effort in to carry that over throughout, like I said, there's like 8 to 10 races or something. And that's where there is your overall like champion. And more in like unlike the local stuff, like nothing that intense, but for those elite riders, it's a major thing. That's your like world championship. So just like sports teams, most likely like you have your national world stuff or the Olympics. There's mountain biking in the Olympics too.
Is it really?
Just for cross country that I know of. So that's the same thing like cross country, like each country has, I think like it depends like how big the country is, I think. But throughout the year, all the riders are like earning points or results, and then like they have to qualify just like everyone else, like obviously. But yeah, and then like the Olympics is like the number one thing for cross country mountain biking.
Gotcha.
Almost. So it's one of those things like if you don't follow it, it's hard to see because it's not, it's not broadcasted on your average, like, local channels.
Right.
Like you can't just kind of like flip through the TV and see like, oh, there's mountain bike racing,
I was going to say, I didn't even know it was in the Olympics.
Yeah. And like, I don't like, it doesn't usually even, I don't think it takes place like at the exact location, but it's because it's like mountain biking. They have to build a course kind of outside of town or something. Right. But yeah,
Gotcha. Okay. So I'm curious about for the youngsters, let's put it like that, the young guys and girls that want to get into mountain biking. What would your advice be to them, no matter what route they want to take, professional, amateur, or just simply as casual for fun? What's your advice for someone who says, I want to get into it, but I have no idea where to start?
Yeah, that's kind of the cool thing about mountain biking. Like you can just go pick up a hike. It doesn't have to be top of the line. It doesn't have to be thousands of dollars, There's a bunch of stuff out there used, whatever, So just like get a bike, just start riding, and that's the thing. Most people can do it, Doesn't cost. I mean, it definitely costs a lot to like buy a bike and the proper riding gear and stuff. But once you have that stuff, it's like you're pretty much, there's nothing really else, You can
investment.
You can take it on yourself, and like if you want to start riding, and that's the thing. Like have fun with it, learn the basics, mess around, and then if you do get kind of serious, that's where like, hey, maybe I'm going to start riding this many days a week, or maybe I'm not, my fitness isn't great, and like there's a hills or something out by my house, I can start climbing them, it's not fun, but you're going to get stronger and stronger. And then like, I don't know, there's some cool jumps or something, like just kind of mess around and all that stuff kind of, like you'll improve without even trying almost, just like, especially when you're younger, I feel like you just can pick up things so quickly, and like any day you're riding, you're going to be improving without even like really knowing about it, and all of a sudden you're like, whoa, like I feel pretty good now, or like I'm going fast, or my fitness is pretty good.
You're kind of going off what you're saying. It seems like because I could relate in the sense of sports, traditional sports, that being football, baseball, basketball, whatever it is you're a blank slate.
Like you're practicing, like if you want to practice 7 days a week, you can, and then that's going to pay off than the kid that only does it once a week.
Exactly. Well, Nick, you're a super well-rounded, down-to-earth, planted dude. I love it. I love everything that you've shared here, talking about your journey through mountain biking, what's to come, everything in between, especially talking about stuttering and dealing with that, because, I mean, that's huge, that not only for yourself, but others who struggle with that. So I want to thank you so much for coming out here, taking the time. Is there anything you want to exit with? Any ending piece, I guess we'll say?
Yeah, no, this opportunity was pretty awesome. I definitely, I feel like you hit me up, I think not too long ago,
Yeah,
probably about a month or so ago.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, like this would be pretty cool. And like I was saying, normally would avoid this kind of stuff for sure. Like the funny thing is like being out talking to people, like doing stuff, I really enjoy it. And like I always like told myself I hated it, so it's like, you know, I'm like, oh wait, I actually enjoy doing this, so I should like do it more often, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, I appreciate it. Thanks for, you know, letting me come on and talk, and hopefully, you know, like I said, like you could talk about this kind of stuff all day.
I know
there's a lot out there, so
it really is. I know, I love it. How about for if people want to find you on social media, follow your journey more, where can they find you? Instagram, Twitter, all that stuff. Where can they?
Yeah, mostly Instagram. I have a Twitter, but I'd never really post on it. But yeah,
What's your handle?
I'm not gonna be able to.
Oh, okay.
Nike D,
We'll tag it. We'll put it down in the description below if you're on YouTube or Spotify podcast.
You could edit that part.
We'll put it in. So, all right, guys, that's the show. I hope you guys enjoyed it as much as I did. Thank you very much for tuning in. As always, I asked you guys one thing only: be a friend, tell a friend, and of course, if you're on YouTube, like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. So, with that being said, thank you guys, and I'll see you guys on the next one.